Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I teach at the University of Colorado, previously at 2 campuses at the University of California, and I'm back today to begin a remake of my series of reading through the poem Hávamál. Yes, I say Hávamál the Old Norse way, not Hávamál, the modern Icelandic way. Now, the reason that I'm returning to this and remaking these videos is that in fall of 2019, so fairly soon as I'm making these videos, my new edition of Hávamál with the Old Norse text, as well as my English translation and my commentary on it, will be published as The Wanderer's Hávamál by Hackett Publishing Company, who also published my Poetic Edda and Saga the Volsungs. The English translation is somewhat adjusted, I would say improved, made more exact by comparison and deep hundreds of hours of reading and study of not thousands of hours, probably thousands, of the original Old Norse text. And so I wanted to revisit this read-through series, also to give you what I consider a more definitive text of Hávamál. If you look at a page from the Codex Regius manuscript, let me show it to you here on the side of the screen and take away this beautiful view of the mountains and horses for a minute. Notice it's not written in runes, first of all. But also notice that there are a lot of abbreviations. There are a lot of ways that the text gets sort of crammed into the space that was available to the medieval scribe. So it takes a certain amount of expertise in order to read the Old Norse text from the manuscript, and that's what I've done. I've gone straight back to the original and presented to you what I read there. Now, every edition of the Old Norse text is going to look a little bit different. My Old Norse text you're going to see on the screen, of which I'm going to read in these videos, is particularly going to be different from what you would find online. Because what you'll find online are typically public domain translations, and that's almost always going to mean very old translations and editions, so from the 1920s or earlier. In those times, it was still pretty fashionable to try to make the text look older than it actually is, primarily by substituting older word forms where the actual manuscript has younger word forms. For example, the filler word is actually a mixture of and ov in the text of Hávamál. Is often considered a little bit of a younger form, ov a little bit of an older form. So many early editors and some modern enthusiasts will replace all the with ovs. I don't do that. I let my text have where the text of the Codex Regius is and I let it have ov where the text of the Codex Regius has ov. Another example is the words for to be, the forms of the verb vera, such as is, and var, was. In Old Norse, there is an earlier stage of these words that is vesa, s, and vas, which of course s and vas, may remind you of their English cognates, is and was. Hávamál has traces of a time when these were still the forms. Before about 1200 is when this change occurred. But not ever as the independent standing word. You don't ever see the word s, the word vas, but you see as the word s is abbreviated to just an apostrophe s. I write it with an apostrophe. It's not written with an apostrophe in the original, which barely has any punctuation. But that does not mean that everywhere that the word is present in the text of Hávamál, that it is an s. In fact, in the manuscript on the whole, what you've got is the form not s. So I don't replace those. So what I'm going to do here is, much like in my previous series, I'm going to read each stanza in Old Norse with reconstructed medieval pronunciation, not modern Icelandic pronunciation. And then I'm going to sort of walk you through my take on the meaning of the Old Norse. This is not a presentation of my translation. It is a study tool for those of you who want to approach the text in Old Norse that I think will complement the Old Norse text and commentary and finished translation that is in my book, The Wanderer's Hávamál. So let's begin, and what I'm going to do with these is ideally kind of take this in chunks, broken up either by stanzas that are closely related to each other, or by stanzas, or ending with a stanza that's particularly famous. In this case, I'm going to end with the very famous stanza 16. Look what I'm enduring to bring this to you, folks. I've got 3 layers of bug spray on, and I'm still going to get ate up by mosquitoes. The horses don't like it much more than I do. All right, 1. Gotir allar gangi fram, skoðaskuli, skugnaskskili, því at óvíst at vita hvar óvinir sitja og fletti fyrir. At all doorways, gotir allar, before one may go forward. Now, let me explain something here that will be important for all of these stanzas just about. Old Norse, and particularly the proverbial poetic language of Hávamál, often has no stated subject. This is a little bit different from the way that a language like Spanish might have no stated subject, in that if there's no stated subject, it's not that you can infer it from the form of the verb typically, but typically the unstated subject is just a third person, general one, somebody. Now, what I typically do in those instances is translate into second person in English, because that's how we translate advice. So what I would do here is say, at all doorways before you may go forward. Now, gangi in Old Norse is third person, not second person, right? And it's subjunctive, that's why I say before one may go forward. The may is really unnecessary in a polished translation, but I just want to convey the degree of uncertainty or doubt that's implied by the subjunctive mood in English, in Old Norse in English. One atu skili, notice again, no stated subject, so one atu, you atu, look around, skodask, one atu, look around, skignask means the same thing. It's actually derived from skeg, so it's to like beard your way forward, you know, look around with your face jutted up. Because, thviat, uncertain is to know, it is uncertain to know where unfriends, ovinir, enemies, sit on the floor before you. Now here's another thing Old Norse typically leaves assumed. Fyrir means before you, or before one, the person that's being warned here. But Old Norse often doesn't have an object of the preposition stated if it's inferable from context, as it is here. Gefendur heilir, gestur erin komin, hvar skal sitja sjá, mjokk bróðr, so á brondum skal, síns freista frama. Hail givers, gefendur heilir, a guest is come in, has come in. Where shall this one, sjá, sit, sitja? That one, so, who shall, skal, on the firewood, all brondum, and then a verb like sit should be assumed here. So we'll sit on the firewood, I'll come back to that in a moment. Is very eager, mjokk bróðr, to try, freista, his fame, since frama. Perhaps try his luck. Now what's going on here? A couple things. To sit on the firewood, this probably refers to a custom that is remembered in later Norway as when a guest comes to a household and the owner isn't home, he sits down on the firewood outside and waits for the owner to come home. So in English, in a cultural translation, I would say this is sit on the threshold, or who is standing on the threshold. Interesting note, the last line, since freista frama, to try his fame, is also found in Vafþrútnismál, also in the Poetic Edda, starting in stanza 11, although he says it a lot. Odin says it in his guise as Gagan Róður, þíns freista frama, to try your fame, when he's talking to Vafþrútnir, Riddle Weaver. And also note in that last line that is a filler word. Very often or ov is just a filler word that has no semantic meaning in these stanzas. Stanza 3. Elds þorf, theims in komin, ok ne kallin, matar ok voða manni þorf, þeim hefir fjall farit. So in several of these stanzas, we're going to see repeated thorv, need, and then a genitive indicating the thing that is needed. So need of fire, thorv else, else being the genitive of elder, fire. And then the dative indicates who needs it. So there is need of fire for that one, thame, who is come in. Now there is that S that stands for the earlier word S, that is a form of air that means is. So for, or in this case, it's all S or air is also the relative particle, that's what it is here. So for that one who, thame air, is come in, has come in, air kommen in, and is cold on the knees, kallen och ne. There is need, thorv, of food, matar, and clothes, voda, for a man, mani, that one who, thame air, so here we actually have thame air spelled out without that abbreviated S, has gone, walked, traveled, farit, around the mountain, fjall. 4. Vats thorv, thame til verðar kummer, theru og þjóðlaðar. Goths uðis ef ser geta meti, orths og endurþogu. So there's need of water, same formulation again, for that one who comes to a meal, kummer til verðar, of drying, theru, and of a people welcome, þjóðlað, genitive þjóðlaðar. So the þjóð is probably just here to alliterate with theru, as is required. You have to have at least 2 stress syllables that alliterate and a C line of ljóðaháttr. For more on this meter, see my video. I'm going to link in a card in the top right about the ljóðaháttr meter that's used in most of Hávamál. So probably, you know, lóð being an invitation, people welcome, we should just understand this is like generous welcome, generous invitation in. And then continuing things he needs, he also needs a good disposition, presumably from the host, if he can get it for himself, if mati geta ser, a word, orths, and endurþogu, silence in return. So presumably some speech from the host and then silence from the host in return while the guest can have a chance to speak. 5. Vits þorv, þeim víða rattar, dælt heima hvatt, at augabragði verður, svo ekki kann, og með snotrum sitter. There's need of wit or wisdom, vit, for that one who wanders widely, rattar vida. Everything, which what can mean in Norse poetry, everything, what, is easy at dalt, heima, at home. That one who knows nothing, so kan ekki. Well, let me start with line 4. He, becomes verður a laughingstock, at augabragði, who knows nothing, so ekki kan, and sits among the wise, og sitter með snotrum. 6. At hyggjandi sinni skulit maður hryssin vera, heldur gatin at geði. Þó horskur og þogl, kummer heimisgarða til, sjaldan verður viti vorum. Því at óbrygdra vinn fær maður aldrei, en mannvit mikið. A man ought not, skulit, be boastful, hryssin. Now that T, also sometimes it's an at, sometimes it's just an A that's added at the end, makes a word negative in Old Norse poetry. So this is, so skuli is ought, should, skulit, ought not, should not. So a man ought not to be showy of his learning, at hyggjandi sinni, or of his mental faculties. Rather, watchful at his mind, heldur gatin at geði. When, þó wise and silent, horskur og þogl, he comes to the home enclosures, heimis garða. So like the enclosure, the yard that's around someone's home that he's visiting, right? You know, early on in Hávamál, we have this whole scenario of guests and hosts that falls away a little bit as we go through the first part of Hávamál called Gestaþota. Sjaldan verður viti vorum. So viti, it's harm, pain. Verður becomes, happens. Sjaldan, seldom. Vorum, dative plural, or it could be dative singular masculine, of aware, vor, var. So harm seldom befalls the wary, the watchful. Because a man, fiat maður, seldom gets, never gets, aldrei fær, an unchanging so a less changeable, less fickle friend, vin, than great man-wit and mikit man-wit. Now here again, the man that first element of the compound is really there just to alliterate with mikit. It doesn't have to be manvid, it's really wit, wisdom, right? Great wisdom, but we need the man there to alliterate. Now, manvit can be used in Norse poetry to mean just common sense, human wisdom, right? But an early translator into English, I believe Olive Bray, used mother wit in stanzas that have manvit. I think that was a phrase in Olive Bray's English for common sense. But because that's there, sometimes people assume that there's a mother that's referenced in Hávamál, when in fact, no mother is referenced anywhere in this text. 7. In vari gestur, til verðar kumur, þunu hljóði þegir, ørum hlýðir, en augum skoðar, svo nysisk fróðra hver fyrir. The wary guest who comes to a feast is silent thegir with thin hearing, thunu hljóði. Now this is an Old Norse idiom for is attentive. He's silent and listens attentively. He listens with ears, hlýðir ørum, and watches with eyes, skoðar augum. So each wise man, so hver is nominative singular, masculine. Fróðra is genitive plural, masculine. So each of wise men, in English of course we would say each wise man. So each wise man, we're going to see this formula a lot in Old Norse, and the Old Norse of Hávamál. You have hver, each, and then the genitive plural of what it is, each of, even though in English we would say, here we would say hver fróðr maður would be the equivalent in English, each wise man, but Old Norse, at least the Old Norse of Hávamál prefers to say each of wise men. So each wise man. So each wise man noses nysisk, so he finds his way forward, fyrir. He noses forward, so each wise man noses forward is the really literal translation, but so each wise man finds his way forward. 8. Hinn sæl serum getur, lof og líkenstafi. Ódella við það, maður eiga skal, annars brjóstum í. That one is happy, who gets for himself, getur ser, praise, and here we have líken, which is relief, soothing, perhaps friendship, which is the chief source of relief and soothing in Hávamál. The stavr is really just there to fill in syllables for the meter. We'll see that several other times in Hávamál where stavr is used as kind of a empty suffix to fill in the meter. Uneasier, odala, so this is the same root word as dalt in stanza 5, everything is easy at home. So uneasier, less easy, less secure. It is with that, við það, which a man shall own, maður skal eiga, in another's breasts, í annars brjóstum, so in another's heart. 9. Så sæl, sjálfur á, lof og vit meðan lifir. Því að illróð hefur maður oft þegið, annars brjóstum or. It's very similar in sentiment. That one is happy, who himself has, ó sjálfur, praise and wisdom while he lives, meðan lifir. Because a man, því að maður, has often received, hefur oft þegið, bad advice, illróð, from another's breast, or annars brjóstum, from another's heart. 10. Byrði betri, berat maður brautu at, en se manvit mikit. Auði betra, þykir það í ókunnum stað. Slíkt volats vera. A man bears not, ber at, there's that at negative suffix. On the road at brautu, a better burden, betri byrði, than it may be great manwit, great wisdom. Better than wealth, betra auði. Auði is the dative singular of auður. Wealth is in the dative because it's what's being compared to. So better than wealth. It seems that þykir in an unfamiliar place, ókunnum stað. Such, slíkt, is the shelter or comfort, vera, of a poor man, volats. So there we just have the adjective volas, of a poor, but understood to be of a poor man. Old Norse, and especially Old Norse Hávamál, will do this a lot, where the adjective stands in for a man who is that adjective. Note, of course, in that last line, vera, that is not the verb to be, that is the noun vera, shelter or comfort. The similar 11. Byrði betri, berat maður brautu at, en se man vit mikit. So the very same first half. Vegnest vera, vegra han veliat, en se ovdrykja ols. So after the same beginning, a man bears no better burden upon the road than great wisdom. He, han, carries not, vegr a, that a is the negative suffix, on the valley, at the valley. This is a pretty common sort of throwaway wording that just means anywhere, really. But of course it helps letter with all these V's, vegnes vera, vegra, veli. So he carries not on the valley, anywhere really. A worse vegnes, road provisions, so like snack, provisions, a pack, something to bring with you, than it may be, and say, an overdrink of drykja, of ale, ols. Now, that se is the subjunctive third person singular of vera, so it's like maybe or something like that. You'll see it in some of these stanzas in Hávamál after en, than, but it really isn't necessary for a translator to throw that in. It's quite alien to English syntax to have, than it may be. We just say than, and whatever it is. Really here, it's just to fill in that meter again. 12. Era svo gott sem gott kveða, ol alda sonum. Því að færa veit fleira drekkur, síns til gets gumi. He's not so good, era so gott, the negative suffix again. As they say good, sem kveða gott, ale, for sons of men, sonum, alda, of course, just for men. Because he, subject unstated, but he, veit færra, knows fewer, who drinks more, drekkur fleira, to his mind. Oh, the subject is stated, I'm sorry. Gumi at the very last word is the subject, so a man, gumi, knows less, who drinks more, to his own mind. That idiom vita till, know to, seems to have connotations of like being in control of, so he's less, perhaps less in control of, less the master of his mind as he drinks more. Or you could simply take the till as being a metrical filler and say he knows less as he drinks more, which is kind of my preferred reading. 13. O minnis hegri heitir, sa yfir oldrum þrumir, hann stellar gedi guma. Þess fugls fjóðrum ek fjótraður vark, í garði Gunnlaðar. It is called heitir, an unmemory's heron, o minnis hegri, that one who saw lurks thrumir, yfir oldrum, over ale drinkings, drinking occasions, drinking feasts. He steals a man's mind, or men's mind. Han stellar gedi guma. I was fettered, ek vark fjotraður, I was chained, feathered. That K at the end of var is the ek, I, repeated as a suffix on the verb. See that fairly frequently in Hávamál too, sometimes 3 times. You sometimes get ek 3 times, I mean. I was fettered in the feathers, I fjóðrum, of that bird, þess fugls, in the enclosure of Gunnlaug, in the home of Gunnlaug. Garður is the fenced area around a home. I'm kind of pointing at this fence, but this is a corral, so it's not really the right kind of fence. But the fence that surrounds the home is the Garður, hence Os Garður, the realm where gods live, Mith Garður, the middle enclosure where humans live, etc. 14. Ollur ek varð ofrólfi, atins fróða fjallars. Því olður badst að aftur of heimtir, where sitt geð gumi. I was drunk, ek varð ollur, or I became drunk, if you want to take ferðan in its really raw meaning. I became over-aled. So ollur is aled. Overolvi, the over-aled one, in fact, since this is a weak adjective. I became aled drunk. I became the over-aled, the over-drunk, too drunk. At the wise fjallars, in parentheses, house. Just like in English, I could say I was at Faith's. I was at Jim's, and that means I was at Faith's house, or Jim's house. Same thing in Old Norse. I was at the wise fjaller, so I was at the wise fjaller's house. Because an ale drinking occasion, an older, is best batst, that each man at hver gumi goes home again, heimtir after, takes home again, heimtir after, sitgeð, his mind. So the ale feast is best, which each man takes his mind back from, right? So that you go home from with your wits about you. 15. Þagalt og hugalt skuli þjóðans barn og vígdjarft vera. Glaður og reifur skuli gumna hver und sinn bíður banna. A prince's son, þjóðans barn, note that þjóðan prince is cognate with Old English Theodin, should vera, in line 3, be silent, thoughtful, þagalt og hugalt, and battle brave, vígdjarft. Now, this doesn't just mean that it's truly only the noble born that ought to be silent and thoughtful and brave, but þjóðans is chosen there for alliteration with þagalt. So you can read this as one ought to, you ought to, but of course we need this extra word for the alliteration. Every man, hver gumna, so there we have that hver again, each, with the genitive plural, so each of men, each man in English, should be again, we can take that down from line 3. Glad and cheerful, glaður og reifur, until uns, he awaits, bíður, his death, or his cause of death, his killer, sin bana. 16 reminds us that we each have one of those, even if we try to avoid the obvious ones. This is a much requested stanza, and thus I will end this reading installment with it. O snjallar maður, hugsk munu oi lifa, ef hann við víg varask, en elli gefur honum engi frið, þótt honum geirar gefi. An unwise man, o snjallar maður. The first of many times we're going to hear that. Well, is it the first? It's one of the first of many times we're going to hear that. I guess it's the first time. He's going to find 100 different ways to say an unwise man for the rest of this poem. Unwise man thinks himself, hyggur sick, sick of course being contained in the suffix on the verb, so the medial passive suffix, thinks himself that he will live always. He thinks himself to live always. Hyks munu liva oi. If he avoids, if han varask vid, battle, vig. But old age and elli gives him, gefur honum, no peace, engi frið. Though thought spears give him, geirar gefi honum. So though spears may give him peace, i.e. he manages to avoid battle, he manages to be in peace his whole life, old age will not give him peace. So what I'm doing in this series, just to sort of recap this at the end of the first video, and it is trying to give you a sense of what the Old Norse says word by word. Sometimes, of course, rearranging the word order as I translate it to approximate natural English word order, which is quite different from the word order of much of Old Norse poetry. And to complement the commentary that is in the Wanderer's Hávamál, not to replace it one way or the other. There's actually fairly different stuff in the commentary talking about, you know, who someone like fjallar might be that we mentioned, what different expressions might mean culturally at a little bit greater depth. These videos are really, again, to complement that by giving you the walkthrough of what the language says, especially if you're an early learner of the language or perhaps an intermediate learner of the language. So with that, I'll encourage you to check out the Wanderer's Hávamál once it's available in fall of 2019. And for now, from beautiful Wyoming, let me wish you all the best.